Just Google Webstore
Hello, Australia and New Zealand. I forgot to take my glasses off. They would have reflected off the screen. We are having just a couple of little technical issues with Rhondda coming into the stream. So I'm going to talk to you for a little while. I'm going to turn comments onto the screen. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to put my glasses back on for this, but this will help me to read what you're saying. Okay, here we go. So I've got watching from the Gold Coast from Trev. G'day, Trev. While we wait for Rhonda's just joined. Looks like we might be good to go. All right, so I'm going to bring OJ
now
into the stream.
Hello.
Hello. Oh my goodness.
There.
I might just change our screen layout around a little bit here, because what I'm going to do, OJ, is I'm going to pop out while the two of you have a chat, and then I'll pop back in here and there. That way we're not crowding the screen with my ugly mug.
I thought it was quite handsome, actually.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to meet you, Rhondda.
Hello.
I have never done the actual hosting of this. Normally we have Tia taking care of this for us. So I'm a little bit clumsy, I'm afraid.
OJ and you, and then I can see something in front of my. Can you see my head?
Right.
Oh, the logo's in front of you. Okay, we'll go back here.
Oh, that's better. There we are.
I am literally learning as we go, so it's very much on the fly. Tia has been caught up on the way home, so I've dived in and just sort of tried to figure it out. And when we got there, I'm pretty happy with our results. So what I might do is I might pop out, because the two of you know each other very well. You have a great history together. So I don't want to dominate the conversation. I'm going to listen on the sidelines, and I may have a question or two of my own that I'll pop in with at some point towards the end, okay? And I'll watch the questions that are coming from the audience, and I'll be able to ask those questions on your behalf as well.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Thanks. Take it away, guys and gals.
Okay. Well, this is all very high tech.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Mine's looking like this.
Your daily
It's 5 o'clock.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Aussies and Kiwis, for ANZACs. For allowing OJ's The Daily Grind to come live on your stream. And Justin and I have been talking leading up to Anzac. I've been having all these really amazing special guests on. And so Justin said, yes, that would be awesome to have you both on. So here we are. And to those on The Daily Grind, I also say hello to you guys. And I've got the lovely Rhondda Vanzella. So hello, Rhondda.
Hello, AJ, as though we've never met before.
No, that's right. It's all very official. So, Rhondda, you are currently the president of the New South Wales War Widows.
I am.
Yes, and of course, you're also the president of the Aussie Youth Quiet Honouring Defence Service. So you're a very important lady on a number of accounts.
There are things I enjoy, and those two are one of them, or two of them.
So with Anzac Day coming up, do you want to just give us a little bit of a background of the importance of Anzac Day to you and why it's so important to you because of your history?
Oh, look, obviously my husband served and I'm now a war widow. And I think the thing that's important to me, as to many people my age, is that we make sure we pass on the understanding and the meaning of Anzac to our grandchildren and children, even though their grandparents may not have served. It's important that all Australian children understand the sacrifice that's been made to make us a free country today, both in the First, the Second World War, in Afghanistan, all wars that have been through that time. There've always been sacrifices made, so we're now the country we are today.
Yes, and your husband served in the Second World War.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we have had 5 children. So I've got a few grandchildren.
Yes, which is wonderful. And that's part of your passion, to see the next generation learning about our culture and our heritage and about the sacrifices that have been made, of course.
Yes.
So you've done a lot of things in your life.
You know I hate talking about myself.
I know you do.
I must be able to talk about you.
So everyone listening, this is actually quite a rare occasion to get Rhondda live talking about her life. So I don't know how far we're going to get, but Rhondda certainly is a lady with a lot of wisdom for us in this current time and leading up to Anzac Day. And I think one of the things that you're very passionate about also is our modern day veterans and the contemporary war widows, and some of the work that you're doing and that we've both done in the space of honouring women united by Defence Service. So do you want to talk a little bit about your work there and what we've done over the last couple of years?
Yes, look, it came about because I just felt as we celebrated the centenary of Anzac, and important as that was, and it was very important, but it was also important at that same stage to honour the women and their sacrifices the women had made, both at home and on the war front. And so I thought it might be a nice idea to get a few of us together. And that few of us end up to be 550 women in Canberra. And it was a wonderful night. And it was a committee of us that put it together. We've had 2 actually years of honouring women united by Defence Service, and we will continue doing those things as we move forward. But it came out at the end of the centenary of Anzac. We then had honouring women united by Defence Service, and we still have that group of women honouring women united by Defence Service. Hadn't been done before, and as you know, OJ, because you're very much part of it, they were 2 very successful dinners, very emotional dinners, but very successful dinners.
Yes, and there was a lot of people
that talk more about that than me.
Oh, well, I mean, it was an amazing thing to be a part of, and some of the feedback that came out of both of those evenings was the recognition of the service and sacrifice of the mothers and families, the daughters, the sisters, and the brothers, the mothers and the fathers, even the aunts and uncles and the cousins, all when a family serves, everyone.
The whole family serves.
The whole family serves in their own way.
And then the whole family make the sacrifice. So if someone loses their life, it's the family who's made the sacrifice. And we're coming to honour the families much more today than we did, say, 10 years ago. And I'm very happy about that. And so when we created Honouring Women United by Defence Service, that was honouring the women and the families.
Yes, and I think Justin might have something to say about that because of his own personal history. I might be putting him in speaking out of school. But, let's talk about the war widows for a minute because, they're a wide age group. There's a number of ladies, although they're getting less every year, that either are war widows of the Second World War, such as yourself, or they actually were serving women in the Second World War.
There's now 15% of women who now serve in the services actively. So there's the serving women, and behind those women, of course, more often than not, there's a family, and how they manage while mum is serving, because traditionally mum is the sort of person that stays home and does all those things. So when mum actually goes and serves, it's a very different family that stay at home and support her. And it is that family that we are trying to unite now and bring them all together.
Yes, and then of course,
as we move forward.
And of course, there's the older generation as well. So, you know, in this time of social isolation, although at the Daily Grind, we say that just because we're physically isolated doesn't mean we have to be socially isolated, because that's what these platforms are called social media are all about. This has been, you know, an unprecedented time in our history, because we can stay connected through social media. But
last fortnight, war widows have phoned 870 other war widows who are living by themselves, who received a phone call from it, and they receive that phone call every fortnight. So our own members ring other members to make sure, the older members, to make sure that they're okay and that they don't need any help or support. And I'm very happy, if it's okay, to give my phone number should anyone be lonely or need some support at this time moving up to Anzac Day. It's very important that they have a phone number. I believe that there's someone at the end of the phone that can talk to them. So if that's okay, at some stage, OJ, you can give out my mobile number.
Sure. And if there is anyone, maybe they can reach out on the comments. I know Justin's there keeping an eye on that. So we can certainly, you know, there's a lot of help. But what can people do themselves to help a veteran or help a war widow, especially the older people, because they're not allowed to go and, you know, literally, you know, give them a hug or whatever, as we often do on Anzac Day, you know, in, you know, the dawn service or the 11 a.m. service. What can people do from their homes for the older generation?
It's very hard, OJ, at the moment under the virus and, you know, the restrictions that are on us. We are using Zoom, so groups of us are coming together and Zooming other people. And, you know, I did one on Wednesday and they were all sewers. So we sat there and sewed and talked to each other. There are two things, I think. If we can get out and walk, that's one thing that you do by yourself. But if you've got the technology, it's easy to be in touch with each other. But if you don't, it's very difficult. You have to know if there's a single person or an older person living in your street. It doesn't necessarily have to be a war widow. It's just that we are a caring society. So today I did a letterbox drop. I live in a cul-de-sac and I'm supporting Aussies and Kiwis, which is what we're on, light up your driveway. So I did a letter today and I went knocking on all of I've lived in this street for 12 years and I'm ashamed to say that I had not knocked on everybody's door. So I went out today and spent an hour knocking on doors, and I even found someone who could play the last post in her driveway on Anzac Day. But if we only went and just knocked on the door, stepped back and said, hello, I'm just here to see that you're okay and I'm sharing with you, light up your driveway, it's a good way to contact and make some contact with it. It's a wonderful, wonderful inception, light up your driveway. Which is
driveway dawn service. Yes.
Dawn service. It's wonderful. And I didn't even know this lady plays in an orchestra. And she said, I've been practicing. I'd love to play it in my driveway. So she's going to come up to me tomorrow and practice. So goodness knows what the cul-de-sac will think when they do the last post tomorrow.
You're going to driveway. You guys are going
to. I've even lit I don't know whether you can see it or not. You know, to light up my driveway, I've been doing this afternoon. And if you go on to Aussies for Kiwis, there's so many good ideas about how you can. I'm not used to doing this.
I should show you its opposite, which is a little bit confusing. So one of the things that I'm doing, so I've just gotten an old egg carton.
Oh, yes.
I've cut that up, and so we obviously at the choir we're making peace poppies. So our peace poppies are red is for remembrance and white is for peace. But I also found out today that the white poppies also represent the families of people fallen in conflict. I didn't know that till today. Someone told me that. So, and then of course we have the pearls to remember the girls, because the poppies would to remember the boys. Ron, tell the story of the Kangaroo March. Because that's
my goodness.
It all got started on the Kangaroo March. Which, hang on, before you do that,
and I first met each other on the Kangaroo March, and I went and found this afternoon an original badge. Can you see that? Am I holding it in the right place?
Yeah, just no, down across, other way. It's opposite to what you think.
Oh, okay, there.
That's it.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's it.
And this says Wagga to Yass Route March 1915 to 2015. I was lying in bed one Sunday morning and I heard Macca talking about the Kangaroo March. And I thought, I think that came through Exeter. So I made some inquiries and realised it did. And I thought, well, you know, my husband was a serving man. I live in Exeter. Maybe I should do something about that. And so I set about organising the reenactment of the Kangaroo March from Wagga to Campbelltown. We couldn't go any further because of the traffic and all the rules and regulations today. But we started off walking from Wagga to Campbelltown. And I thought, oh, this will be really good. We'll walk to fitness. And I realised very soon after the second day that we're actually walking to fatness, because every little town, there were 38 of them, every little town we went through reenacted the Kangaroo March in their town. And that was to welcome the kangaroos as they were going through, and to feed them and to entertain them. And it was the most wonderful 5 weeks I have ever spent in my life.
We've got, and just for those who don't know what the Kangaroo March is, so in 1915-16, after Gallipoli, and you know they were rallying troops. I tell the kids that the social media of 1915 was actually to walk into your town and gather the town people, really physically, in the town square or the town hall, and rally support for, at that time, the war effort. And so there were 9 recruitment marches sent across New South Wales and Queensland, with the Kangaroo March being the longest of those 9 marches. So from Wagga through to Campbelltown, where I think some of them actually did catch a troop train into Sydney, to then go by boat to WA to then go off to war. So the Kangaroo March was actually a recruitment march that went for 524 kilometres of New South Wales.
And we know all about that.
It took 3.5 years to organise, Rhondda. So Rhondda and I were on the Kangaroo March organising committee. Rhondda asked me to come onto that committee and be part of it. It was a great honour. And just to walk in the steps of those young men, and not some of them not so young, and then walk into each town and just honour them and honour the descendants of those people as well. We had 2 gentlemen on the Kangaroo March with us whose fathers had walked the Kangaroo March. And I get goosebumps just even saying that. Dear Jim's not with us anymore, but he walked a short distance, and then Michael Fitzgerald also walked, and he was only going to walk to Cootamundra, but he ended up walking the whole way with us. He didn't want to stop.
It was wonderful.
So many memories, and that's actually how the choir came out of that initiative. I was education and music director for that, and had to connect as many young people along that 524 kilometres as I possibly could. I think there was something like 176 schools. And so the choir was an online choir. And back then, nobody knew what an online choir was. But it was the only way to connect 176
rural people.
Rural children. So the choir's been working with rural and regional young people with veteran and defence families for, we first put the idea in 2012, but have been an official choir for since 2014, so 5 years. And it's been wonderful. And actually, we should say, just while we're talking about the choir, the big national anthem choir mashup for the children is the submissions are still open. We've extended the deadline till tomorrow night, and I've just the tech guys are probably going to kill me, but I've just told a school up in the north of Cairns that if they got them in by Monday, that would be okay. So if you're sort of thinking, oh, I can't do it by tomorrow night, I'm not going to do it, but you could do it by Monday.
Just do it and send it to OJ. Just do it.
Right.
It'll be a wonderful opportunity for your children or grandchildren. It's just the most fun choir, and they learn so much. I can't tell you how you should encourage your children or grandchildren to go on and join the choir. I was lucky enough to tour with the choir when we went to France. It just teaches them so much in this space. It's very important. And I might tell you, OJ's written some beautiful songs that the children sing regularly. And when they do, many times, there's not a dry eye in the room when they sing the songs because they're so moving, so understanding. And I'm sure, OJ, at some stage you'll play some of those songs.
Yes, in fact, yes, we might. The Aussies and Kiwis for ANZACs might just get to hear some of those. Nod, wink, wink. Not saying anymore because I'm not
pressure. But this is such a community-based, the choir and what the Aussies and Kiwis for Anzac. It's such a community-based organisation. I can't recommend it strongly enough to you. And when I door knocked today in my street, I can't tell you how many people were so pleased that someone was doing something, and I'm sure I'll have all my people in my street out on Anzac Day. Just do it. Just knock on the doors and do it. Come, light up your driveway.
Yes, and so this is going to go. I'm doing this little project for my letterbox. So I'm making peace poppies by putting a bit of white paper in a bit of just an egg carton and putting that together. I've cut out a paper plate. There we go.
Oh, that's very clever, AJ.
I've just put a Lest We Forget, which is going to go behind there. And then these little babies are going to go all the way around to make a wreath. And I'm going to put that on my driveway. And I'm doing a letterbox drop, and my street's going to have the sound equipment of the choir blasting out. So the letterbox drop is to warn them as much as anything that they're going to get a commemorative service on Anzac Day, whether they like it or not. But it's funny.
There are hundreds of thousands of people are going to be in their driveways. It's just wonderful. And congratulations to the guys who put all this together. I'm just so in awe of you.
It is amazing. And, the Aussies and Kiwis for ANZACs, that's just an amazing team that are working tirelessly. They're volunteers. For the streaming, those who are joining us from the Daily Grind, cheers wherever you are in the world joining us. It's been wonderful to have this little collaboration. And that's what I love about the Aussies and Kiwis for ANZACs. They are so collaborative. I love collaboration, for those of you who know me, and so does Rhondda. And we've done a lot of collaborative things together over the years, and partly why I said to Justin, I was just going to bring Rhondda onto OJ's The Daily Grind, and I talked to Justin about what I was doing, and he was like, yeah, absolutely, let's bring you on this platform. We can simultaneously stream. So Justin, I don't know if you're still there and you can jump on. There's been any questions for Rhondda?
There has. I have to put my glasses on. I am blind as a bat without my glasses. So sorry about the reflection from the screen. I'm going to actually put the comments on the screen for you to read.
Okay.
And I'll also also read them out at the same time. Now, the first one that I spotted here, if I can get to the right timestamp, was from Amy Feldman. Not so much a question as a comment. The Honouring Women and Families United by Defence Service dinners are amazing. Such a privilege to have attended. So Amy's obviously come to one of those dinners before.
She was one of the helpers on the night. Yep.
Brilliant. One of our admin, Anita, or Neat, as we call her, not because she's, obsessively tidy, just because that's her nickname. She's mentioned that her 94-year-old grandmother, Marie Bright, was the president of the Lithgow Legacy War Widows, and she's still going strong today. How cool is that?
That's amazing.
Moving forward, we have, I think this is also Anita. Yeah, she was also in the RAF. Grandmother was also in the RAF for 2 years.
It's amazing how many women were actually active and in the services all those years ago. We think we're very progressive today with having 15%, but there were many, many women who came onto the war front and worked and joined the services, particularly after during the Second World War and afterwards.
And of course, there were all the women that stayed back and joined the Women's Land Army to keep Australia alive and working. And then there were people that like some of my relatives, the male relatives on my dad's side, who weren't actually allowed to go to war because they were either primary producers or they were asked to stay back and do special jobs. Like my grandfather had to actually make sure the barrels of the weapons were straight at the Lithgow Small Arms Factory for the Second World War, and he wasn't allowed to go because he was a crack shot with a pistol, with a 22. In fact, my dad told the story that one day him and his two brothers pestered my grandfather because apparently he was a bit legendary, and they'd heard the story that my grandfather could shoot a hole through a penny with his 22, flick it up in the air and shoot a hole through the penny. Oh, okay. So one day they went out the back and they got my grandfather really angry because they kept going, "Oh, you can't do that, Dad, you're just, that's just a lie and people are making that up." So he said he really, not very happy, went out the back, flicked a penny in the air, and Dad said he shot a hole straight through it. And he said, "Us boys never crossed him again."
Oh, that's gold.
I think the most important thing this Anzac Day is to make sure nobody's lonely and nobody has nobody to talk to. I think it's very important that what you guys are doing on this, and that's great if people have the technology. But if you're home by yourself, I'm very happy to give my mobile number for people to ring me if they were lonely and wanted to speak to somebody.
That's beautiful, Rhondda. Thank you.
And everyone's got a phone number. So, even if they don't have technology, if you're on the phone, you don't have to be lonely. You don't have to spend Anzac Day on your own. No. And I think that's an important message. And, of course, Justin, you know a little bit about what it's like being in a defence family.
Well, I do. My father served in Vietnam, and as with a lot of Vietnam veterans and veterans in general, there was a lot of unresolved trauma. And that actually brings us to our next comment from Karen, who's had a similar experience of what I was going to talk about, is that intergenerational trauma. Now, we hear that term. For those who don't know, I work predominantly in the suicide prevention sector for a number of different organisations, and we do hear about intergenerational trauma quite a lot in the Indigenous sort of communities. But intergenerational trauma is something that can exist quite extensively for veterans and their families as well. Yeah.
And it's when someone was lost at war, there wasn't the technology to get the message back or the understanding. And, you were at home and you had no idea that your partner or husband had been killed for a long, long time. And then the trauma of just not knowing is just a trauma you don't want to experience.
And I think that intergenerational stuff is very real, because I know when we did the Kangaroo March, Rhondda, we went through so many communities that really, like the 7 and 8 year old children were still grieving the loss.
Or they were told that they shouldn't talk about it, so they didn't know about it. That's the other side of it.
It was very much, I think, when I was a child, you didn't talk about things. When I was growing up, it was very much a culture, if you like, of pick yourself up, dust yourself off, stop your whinging and get on with it.
Exactly, get on with it. Exactly. That stoic part.
That's right. And we have come a long way in understanding mental health and the need to socialise, the need to connect, the need to talk.
Isolation is still the worst thing for, and coming up to Anzac Day, I remember when I first took on this role and I was honoured to do it. But at the end of the first year, I was so exhausted. I was used to honouring my own husband on one Anzac Day. But when you go to one service after another, after another, after another, representing all the war widows, to which I was very honoured to do, but it does take a toll on you. And by the end of my first year in this role, I was mentally exhausted. So I understand how people out there feel, not knowing who to phone, not knowing where your support is. I understand that. And
Rhonda's doing an amazing job with that organisation, which was partly why I wanted her to come on and talk. And it's, as I said, it's a rare thing to get her on. We almost didn't get her on because the technology's not your favourite thing, Rhonda. We had a few technical issues, but we got you on.
And I had a stress attack. Another one of grey hair.
But it is an absolute.
You've had a few, Justin.
I have a full head of hair though, so I am grateful. I have a full head of hair. It's just all the coloured ones fell out.
Do you want me to give my phone number now, Justin, or I'll give it to you afterwards?
I might grab it off you afterwards, and then we can pop it in the comments, and that way, when people are watching it on playback later, it will be there as the last comment for them to view.
Sure.
Also, Justin, is there anyone that has any questions for Rhonda?
There is. There's actually there's a number of questions and shout outs here. So I'm going to go to Trevor next. Trevor's got a great question for you here. What was the greatest reward you've had from running these dinners, from the dinners you mentioned earlier?
Oh, gosh.
There's a lot.
Yes, there was a lot. I think just for women to come together and realise that there was so much support out there for them, I think. You would see women put their arms around each other and hadn't seen people for years. It was the love that was in the room, and the respect that was in the room. I'll cry when I talk about this. So we had from the Governor General down at the last dinner. OJ, you might like to talk about it. When we walked, we had original World War II women who'd served in the Second World War, and they walked in with the minister, with the Governor General, and so it wasn't about the people with positions. We were honouring the women who'd served, and there wasn't a dry eye in the room, I don't think, OJ, was there?
No, and I think what was so lovely about that was the high-profile people who would normally be the ones being introduced were actually the
escorts.
They were the escorts for the serving women from World War II. And we were honouring the women by giving them high-profile people to walk in with. It was very special. And one of those ladies was 99 years old, and she walked in.
Boy, could she talk.
But amazing stories. And she walked in with the Governor General, and she had like 2.5-inch heels on at 99. Looking amazing, and she was the first woman in the Australian Navy.
Wow!
So she was the first woman to be officially recruited into the Australian Navy. So the story she has, and it was really funny because one of the stories she tells is that her boss, who was a woman, because she was asked by the Navy to put all these women together, she didn't get to be the first recruit. So, so
I've forgotten her name, OJ. Can you remember her name?
I'm just trying to think of it. I should try and look it up. Her names, all the names, I'm getting all the names mixed up in my head because there were, 8 or 9 women that walked down.
From the First World War.
From the
the Second World War.
It was a pretty special moment. And, yeah, as you said, there was not a dry eye as the MC just shared a little bit of their story as they walked in. They're going to make me cry. As they walked in and were honoured by standing ovations by everyone in the room. Oh, goodness me. Yep, that's enough.
Very emotional, I guess.
Trevor's apologising at the moment for making you both cry.
Made it all worth it, those sort of moments, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I know.
It's honour and joy to, these women who have really all their lives have sacrificed for their country, and they were so proud to be there. And I guess my feeling was that I was able to do that or make that happen in a very small way. So I was honoured by them being there, and so was OJ and all of us who did it, put it together.
But Rhondda was the visionary behind it, and I think that that is who Rhondda is. She's an amazing visionary. She's a change maker. She's not scared of doing what needs to be done to make things better for everyone. And I should say, and she's going to hate me for this, but that's why she has the letters OAM after her name, because her leadership in the community and the things that she has done in her life. We don't have time on this call, and I know she hates talking about herself, but the things that she's accomplished for our nation has just, it's
that's enough, OJ.
I know. I got that in. Wasn't sure I'd even get that in. So
okay.
So another question. Have we got another question?
We have mostly comments, but I can pop a couple of those on the page here. So we have just a Facebook user. The name hasn't come through, but talking about how a grandfather shared stories later in life. Sorry, my dog is giving me the wind up, telling me, pay attention. And we've got a lot of thanks coming through the page. We have another one. It was a beautiful dinner. I cried having my grandma when she was escorted in.
Yeah.
Anne Morley has said thanks to both of you for the support you give to the war widows, and it is so important.
Anne Morley, thank you, Anne. Anne Morley was the lady who first did. I'm going to wipe my tears and tell you this story. Anne Morley sent me a crocheted poppy that she crocheted herself, and I wrote back to her and said, "Do you think you'd be able to do 600 of those, Anne?" And she wrote back and said yes. And so everyone who attended the dinner, the 550 people who attended the dinner, had a beautiful crocheted poppy that Anne was responsible for starting. It was amazing. I mean, I get these packets with these beautiful poppies that Anne had put the pattern together, and can you imagine, we had 550 poppies on the night that we were able to give everyone, so everyone wore a poppy on the night. So thank you, Anne.
That's beautiful. I spoke with a lovely woman earlier today named Jess. We shared her content, or she shared her content on the page, I should say. She's an artist who's painting cards, like greeting cards, and putting a call out for people to send special messages to people who are deployed or to other loved ones of veterans or lost the fallen. And she's handwriting and sending those letters, those cards out to families all across the country and the globe. She's doing that purely out of love. She's paying for the materials and the stamps herself. And I had a conversation with her about how we might be able to support that in the future to be an even bigger endeavour with other artists.
And those cards, and I know there have been blankets knitted, all sorts of things that we send to those who are serving, and how much it means to those people that are serving. And because we're not actually in a war, so to speak, that we're in, then we tend to forget about the service that those people in the services are actively serving today as we speak, and won't be home for Anzac Day, and probably won't be home for Christmas either, because they're over there serving on a 6 or 8 month service. So, we need to remember them more often. And I guess that's what we're trying to do. That's what the War Widows try to do. We try to make contact with families, as does Legacy. And, we're there to support each other. No one needs to be alone today, either through technology or the ability to cut down social isolation. OJ taught 100 War Widows last year how to use an iPad. And that would start off from, this is an iPad, this is the front, and this is the back. Because you tend to forget that, women my age have never touched a computer, and, you wouldn't know where to start. But we did 100, OJ did 100, taught 100
last year and 100 the year before, and I think about 50 the year before that. So
slowly but surely we're getting them onto computers.
Because now there's ladies out there that know how to use technology and are staying connected. So that's fantastic. Actually, Karen's saying, has someone recorded their stories? It's important we can remember. So one of the things, if I can answer this one, Rhonda, one of the things that we're doing with the ladies in iPad training is we teach them how to use technology to leave a legacy. Because like Rhonda, and I'm going to use Rhonda as an example, there are incredible women who are living treasures, who just don't think their story is very important at all. And they would think, well, why would I bother putting down my stories? No one wants to listen to me. So one of the questions that I ask is, I ask the ladies, raise your hand if you would like to have heard your great-great-grandmother's voice. And, of course, all of them put their hand up, because that would be so special. And I said, I say to them, the thing with technology is when you record your story on your iPad, and I teach them how to do that, both with artifacts and with storytelling and different ways that they can tell their story and leave that legacy. I say to them, that's there forever now, because, and leave it in your will, by the way, if anyone's watching, if you're going to leave your legacy on your iPad, please put that in your will and tell your family that the stories are on your iPad, and make sure they know how to get into your iPad, that they know where all your logins are and your passwords.
OJ, maybe that could be a call out from this Anzac Day for people to record the stories and send them into Aussies for and Kiwis for Anzac. Maybe that could be a byproduct.
We would love that. We have actually put a video challenge out a couple of times saying, tell us what Anzac Day means to you. And we haven't had a huge number of responses. I would love to see more of that.
I think it is, and I would say, I thought this to start with, that my life is not important. I mean, I don't mean it's not important, because I obviously have a family and it's important, but you don't think what you've done is important. And yet when you start to talk about it, hear someone say, oh, in that year I did that. And, even at my age, my grandchildren have no idea the things that I went through in my growing up years. And even those parts of the story are so important to register and to pass on. And so, Justin, I think I could only encourage people who are watching, even if it's only 3 or 4 paragraphs, it is important to tell your story.
Well, I remember when I was about 19, I think, and my grandfather was quite ill. My sister and I drove over to Adelaide, and we spent about a week there, and he was telling us the stories of his youth. Now, he didn't serve, but he told us some amazing stories of riding horseback across Australia and then ditching the horse and jumping onto a blue rattler, and later years it was the red rattlers, and it was just amazing. And
my grandchildren don't believe that I rode a horse to school every day. It was on our horses.
What do you mean you didn't have rollerblades? Now, Trevor did make you cry, and he was very, very apologetic in response to Karen. Trevor's actually coming on for a live stream next Tuesday, and he's making a documentary on the children of the Vietnam veterans.
Oh, wow.
And he's made an offer here. He said that he would love to film these stories. So I'm going to have a chat with Trevor on the side and see if we can't get a bit of a collaboration happening.
And we can talk to the OJ, can give you the names, and we've got all that recorded. So we're happy.
And one of the things that I'm passionate about as well, because of course Rhondda and I work, and the work I've done over the last 5 years or 7 years now really in this space has been intergenerational. And so I work with children, school-age children, sometimes as young as 4, right up into their 20s. And I work with war widows some of them are, 94, 5, 6, still driving a car, incredible women. Like, you would think they're in their 60s, the way they act. Amazing. You can't even believe that they're in their 90s.
I think it's Shirley who has a bright yellow car.
Oh my goodness, amazing. So what I would love to see is that the children of our nation learn to become the story gatherers.
Yeah.
And then they learn how to become the storytellers for future generations, because that's how oral traditions did it. So in my book that I've been writing for about 5 years, called Rethink Remembrance, How Will the Next Generation Remember, which I will one day stop long enough to actually finish writing it. I think, oral traditions have used storytelling and song to pass on those important stories.
What the Indigenous people do all the time.
Yeah, and the stories hold knowledge. So the stories of how we used to do things are very, very important, because a nation that doesn't know where it's been doesn't know where it's going. And, that some of them are skills, like for even the recent fires, it's come out, how we're managing the land. We could be doing that a whole heap better by understanding how our forefathers did it, and how our First Nations people did it and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of knowledge to be gained from stories. So,
let's work on that. Let's work on that, OJ. And
I think so. And
Definitely.
Of course, Trev, thank you. Was it Trevor? Yeah.
Trevor and Karen are reaching out to one another now to talk to each other. So we'll bring Karen in on this as well. We're all about collaboration. So
Absolutely.
Anybody who has the passion, we welcome you aboard. Yeah.
And we can give you some names.
Absolutely. And yes, so that sounds like an awesome collaboration to come out of this daily grind. This and Aussies and Kiwis for ANZACs Live, which was a collaboration by its very inception. So I certainly appreciate you guys live streaming Daily Grind. Oh, there we go. And I know there are people from all over the world, certainly from the Daily Grind, that will be watching this, as well as, of course, the members at Aussies and Kiwis for ANZACs. We hopefully it's been helpful, inspirational. You've got some ideas, and that you've enjoyed it, because one of the things that I do at the Daily Grind, and one of the reasons I started this, was to connect people. Social media gets a lot of bad rap, and there is the good, the bad, and the ugly of social media. However, connecting and staying connected is one of the good news stories of social media. So let's use it for good. During social isolation, we have a global coffee or whatever you drink community that stays connected twice a day, 9 a.m. or 6 p.m. Sydney time, wherever you are in the world, or you can just have a coffee in your own time zone and go in. So you can go in and like OJ's The Daily Grind, just a little plug, for those on Aussies and Kiwis for ANZACs. But, of course, those on The Daily Grind, go in and like Aussies and Kiwis for ANZACs group and stay connected.
And joining the service of the driveway.
Service, yeah. Absolutely.
OJ, I may have invited everyone in my friends list to your page this afternoon.
The more we connect.
And don't forget, if there's anyone out there who feels they'd like to phone somebody on Anzac Day or even before that, I'm very happy and understand the need to make a call.
That's really gracious of you, Rhondda. Thank you so much. And we'll also share the other avenues such as Open Arms, Beyond Blue, Lifeline, and so forth, as well as the New Zealand equivalents on our page again after the broadcast. Yeah. There was one other comment in there that I can't find, and I do feel that I need to put it out there. We were talking poppies before. We forgot the purple poppy for the animals.
Oh, for the animals, absolutely.
I am actually wearing right here the purple and...
Oh, I've got one of those.
They're actually going to be available through the Aussies and Kiwis group page within the hour. We've made a connection with the supplier or the manufacturer, and they're going to be donating to Soldier On as well. So stay tuned for that one.
Can I just say thank you for all you and your team are doing. I think this will be a very, very special Anzac Day this year because it will be at the street level by people who just have to walk to the top of their drive. It's a wonderful, wonderful initiative. So thank you very much.
And on behalf of the team, Rhondda, thank you. It's been a pleasure for us to do it, really. We've learned so much more than we ever learnt in school. Seeing the first-hand accounts, those stories we were talking about before, the outpouring of love, it's been a really, truly wonderful experience. There's another week to go, and I wanted to go slowly.
Yes, because we're all learning something, and touching people. It's a lovely way to do it.
Tomorrow night we're going to do this again, but I'm going to bring a couple of musos on, some emerging artists who are just fabulous young people who've just lost their entire livelihood because of Corona, but they're amazing young people, and they're going to bring their instruments and they're going to sing some songs. So some more stories by music.
That's the one. Stories by music, love it. Well, we might let everybody go and have their dinner now. What do you think? Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Rhondda, thank you so much for coming. And OJ, thank you for connecting all of it together. Really, really grateful. I know a lot of people.
To catching up with you at some stage, Justin. I think you've got some wonderful ideas. And I think out of this, we'll make a lot of connections that we'll be able to network and support moving forward.
Well, very soon I'm going to have your phone number, so be prepared to be nagged.
I didn't catch that, Justin.
I said very soon I'll have your phone number, so be prepared to be nagged.
Oh, that's fine. I'm by myself. I only walk. I'm happy all day. Happy to talk. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you both
Stay
very much.
safe.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wash your hands.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thank you. See you later.
Thanks, OJ. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.